What's going on, everyone? Tyler Michael DeFreitas, Cleveland Adolfo III. Today's video, I am going to talk about some of the pros of Greek life for people who are interested, considering Greek life. I'm a student at Umass Amherst personally. It's Umass, best dining in the country, if you haven't heard, according to the Princeton Review. So it's legit. But there's a lot of valid concerns as well as benefits that people weigh when kind of making this decision, as you should with any decision. And you look at them both, and then you make a determination as to what you think may be best for you. But also, I would encourage people when you're like in that situation where like it's kind of like equal, where if you see the pros, you see the cons, and you feel like it might be a value to yourself, you should just try it. And then worst case scenario, it's not for you, you don't have to worry about it. So I'll be doing a series of videos talking about everything Greek life as far as stereotypes, rushing, pledging, different, like some of the fantasies that are involved with it. A lot of it's largely exaggerated. Unfortunately, some of it is true in certain instances, but they're extremely rare. The context of how they developed, how they got to where they are today, because you can't just have a logical understanding of something by starting off with the present. You have to understand why we got to where we are. Like, you can't understand what happened in Iraq without going back to the 1980s. You can't understand what happened in the 1980s without going back to the borders of Iraq being drawn and why they were drawn in a particular way and by whom and what happened and predated that. Like, you have to have that understanding. You can't just start the story off in the middle. And I feel like I know that's exactly what happens with Greek life. So my goal is context. So pros of Greek life. Number one is finding a sense of purpose and sense of belonging. Now, it is true, you can find these things anywhere. Me personally, I've been involved in many different extracurriculars in my life: student government in high school, student government in university, mock trial team at high school, mock trial in university. And I've enjoyed all these experiences. I've played sports and so forth. I did cross country, track. I did football for a solid 2 practices. Wasn't for me. I didn't like going home feeling like I was 96 years old. It's just, I needed to be able to move. I can't move around like an old man when, I'm an academic weapon. So that's what my priorities are. Work hard, play hard. So yes, sense of purpose, sense of belonging. These are 2 of the 14 basic human desires, according to psychologist James Van Fleet. And they're very important. Like, think about people who are depressed. Like, these are things where they're often missing. The sense that there's a reason why you're here, that there's more to the world. When you wake up in the morning, you have something to look forward to. Like the guys in my organization, they're not just my friends. They really are my brothers. And I know they will be for the rest of my life, because of the experiences we went through together, but also because we sympathize in so many ways. And it's important to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. Empathy is where, like, you can feel bad for someone, but you can't understand why they feel that way. Whereas sympathy is, you went through the same thing and you can sympathize. And that's why bonds in Greek life can be so strong when it's done correctly, and when you have that level of respect for each other. And there's like a lot of things that gets twisted, and people will focus on the language. And like, this is a big problem with our politics too. We care more about the language than we do the policies. Same thing with Greek life. Focus more on the language rather than the intent. And I'm not saying it's an excuse for the language, but I'll say right off the bat that Greek life is not only far more tolerant than other institutions that you'll find on a college campus, they are far more accepting. And this notion that they like don't tolerate people who don't fit like a certain breed. There's no certain breed. Greek life is, you be yourself, and if people like you, and if you are a good person, and people stop me with this, like, if they like you. Well, yeah, like if you're a Nazi, for instance, I don't like you. If you believe someone should be treated differently because of color skin, I don't like you. If you have no goals and you think everything in your life should be handed to you and that everything's free, like I don't like you. Because I will come from like at the expense of someone else. I'm someone who's very progressive. And that doesn't fit. Like, everyone in my organization is super progressive. There's progressive Republicans, progressive Libertarians, progressive what have you. Politics is never like a major thing. And it is like, we'll have conversations, but like there's so many stereotypes that just like completely contradict the evidence. And there are people who are on the outside who will take like one example of a story and then blow it up and then blanket assign it to every Greek life work, which is illogical, and it's not a strong, compelling argument. Sense of belonging. that sense that there's people who care about you, that you're valued, that you matter to me, that you matter to God, that you matter to your friends, that you matter to your brothers, you matter to your sisters. Like that when you're wrong about something, they'll tell you like a true friend will. That when you're in the right, they'll give you praise. If you ever have that bad boss, like they always point out the negative, never the positive. Like me, I'm in Kappa Sigma, and like that's what our brotherhood is. Is like we're honest with each other. We don't hold back on anything. Um, and that's what true friends do. Like it's not about like other people. Like you give someone a constructive criticism, and it makes you a hater. You give them praise, it makes you a dick rider. It's like such a contradictory like world we live in. Like up is down, left is right. Like there's no winning. You're canceled either way. Everyone's irredeemable the moment they disagree with you. Whereas in Greek life, like we don't care. And then some people take that, they'll like, take it out of context, clip that. Greek life just said he doesn't care. Uh, we don't care what other people think about us who didn't even take the time to actually get to know who we are, who already had their minds made up because they're irrational, they're illogical, and they're the type of people who are going to go into leadership positions and do incompetent jobs because they make assumptions about people without actually getting to know about things. And I'm not taking a holier than thou position. I treat my fellow man the same way. I don't associate people who aren't in Greek life as lesser than Greek life, or like that whole top tier mentality. Like you'll never hear anyone in my organization say that because we don't care what other people think about us. In that regards, like we're happy being friends together, and we all have different goals, different aims. Some of us have similar ones, and we all help each other because that's what friends do. Number two is the networking by far. So I come from a poor socioeconomic background, and Greek life without question has significantly enhanced my ability to meet more people, to better understand what I want out of life, to learn different skill sets and values that have been applicable to the things that I'm interested in. So I'm very passionate about public speaking and sales. And me, I was never very socially confident, and it helped break me kind of out of my shell. Being around people who are social creatures helped kind of like bring the party animal out of me, so to speak. But like that same person who's a party animal is the type of person who goes to become successful in the real world. Andrew Carnegie, a lot of these business people, they say like it's not the industry knowledge that made them get where they are. It's the people skills. Andrew Carnegie said he knew nothing about steel, next to nothing, but that he knew how to talk to people. And while he was in charge, there were no riots at his factories. It's not as you could like tag that gray area. After he was gone, there were other people weren't as competent as him. That happens all the time. And sure, could he have like set up structures to account for that? Absolutely. Can certain Greek life orgs that were starting off with good intentions have better structures in front of them? Absolutely. Like we do that. Ours does. We implement structures for that. But the networking is unbelievable, especially if you come from, no matter what background you come from, rich, poor, middle class. We always have these divisions in society of poor versus rich, middle versus poor. It's usually poor versus middle and rich versus poor. And then the elite, super rich against everybody. But they're operating behind the scenes, and they just like let these guys fight while they rake in all the cash. that's what the way like a George Carlin would describe it. But so yeah, two is the networking without question. Number three, fun, memorable experiences with the guys and the gals. If you have charisma, and if you're a good person. So yeah, I mean, my experiences that I've had are ones that I'll cherish forever. The ones that I'll tell my friends in the future, my children, my future grandchildren, assuming that I have some. Hopefully not too many. Hopefully I did want some at some point. I mean, I don't know when. Certainly not now. I mean, I'm a junior in college, so I'm not trying to have any children to support right now. But yeah, they say like it's like the pledge process in particular is the best experience you'll never want to do again. I couldn't disagree more. Like over the course of the process, it's a very wholesome experience of like you start off with this group of strangers, and by the end of the process, is that you're closer to these people than like any other group of people you ever met, and you know it's going to be that way like for life. Like whenever like I'm around one of my friends, like it makes me happy. Like these particular ones, it's like literally like I know they're going to be lifetime friends, even though we're going off in our own directions. It's not like that high school sense of once you leave high school, like it's all over, and like you don't really see anybody. Well, that's people's own choice. They choose to not do that. It's not that they aren't capable. But like I know this is a situation where like we're all busy people. We put our obligations first as well. We should. Like I'm not putting any of them above my God or family. That doesn't mean that like I would not go out of my way to help them if it was within my means or if it was within reason. Because I absolutely would. If one of them was like stranded on the other side of the country, it was within my means to go get them, I would do so. Um, that's all. Like there's no resource or expenditure or time I wouldn't spare to help them if it didn't interfere with like my own well-being or my family interests, financial interests. It's not a big like it's not there's more wealth to me. Like being a part of like this brotherhood has meant more to me in terms of like wealth up here cannot be taken away. Whereas we know, sadly, the lessons of history teach us that wealth from the in the bank account sense can absolutely be taken. The monetary sense, it can be taken from you. Um, but the wealth from like the connections you form and what they mean to you, the memories you have, that can't be taken away. So yeah, those are the three that for now: sense of purpose, sense of belonging. Number one, number two, the networking, and then number three is the like the sense of long time camaraderie and the nostalgia and memories that you'll have forever. That eternal sense of belonging. So yeah, I'd be happy to take any questions too if anyone has any further things. I'm a member of Umass Kappa Sigma, and I'm actually going to be in an active this next semester, and that's what I'll talk a little bit about, like in a cons video, in a very broad sense. I won't go into super specific detail, but like I think like because of like experiences I've had, I can talk a lot about like the negatives about it, especially with people who deal with like some kind of mental health trauma. Like we all actually do. It's important to understand that and normalize it. That it's okay to not be okay. But yeah, there's some other things that I'm talking about too, like philanthropy and things. So that's why I'm going to break these up in different videos. I don't want them to be too long. I want them to be accessible as many as possible. But for the next video, I'll do cons. And thanks for watching.